Okay, guys, welcome back. So I was asked what I learned over the years. So we're still doing Love Week. So I was asked what I've learned over the years through Godspousing. So being married to gods. I've had many, as you guys know, and that wasn't me going out and having fun sowing my wild oats. It's just I've been around for over 4 decades. It's going to happen. For some people, maybe not. For me, yes. And I was a good little Catholic girl, so I don't know how many of those marriages were like, sure, I'm marrying you. And I'm not sure how many were committed marriages. But, and this was in the time before the internet. Yeah. So I wasn't some crazy little thing on the internet. I'm sure the internet was in other places, but, the time I was appropriate age to be marrying gods, it certainly wasn't here. It was just here, and I had nothing to do with it. Um, your first marriage, if you get into it when you're too young, and I'm not talking about inappropriate age, you should be a grown but adult to do this. But if you're not mature enough emotionally yet, your first couple of God's blessing experiences, marriage to a god, love affair with a god, whatever you're doing, are gonna be like playing house, or playing at being lovers, or playing at being something else. You're both really not going to be committed, and I think you both know that. The god especially knows it. But you like to pretend you are. It's so much fun, ever so much fun to play house and to, be a married couple and do all the newlywed things and pretend you're on your honeymoon or whatever. Those marriages just kind of don't last, and it doesn't have to be, dread and drama when they go apart. They just kind of do. And because you guys were playing house and you weren't deeply in love and you weren't a married couple, that's why when it finally comes, reality comes crashing in, as it always does. It doesn't last. And if you're lucky, you decide to just be friends or, whatever. So those kind of espousements can end. It's okay. Sometimes we need that training wheel, relationships. It's just like, most people do not marry the first person they date. It's the same exact thing. If the gods were marrying you, and I'm still looking back, wondering for myself, not for you guys, if they were marrying you, maybe it was like they knew they were going to be the training wheels of relationships, because being with a god is in many ways very unique compared to being with a human. They are with a lot of other people. Thank the god and goddess we did not know this at the time before the internet, but they are with a lot of other people. The internet added complexity to that. It added the term god spousing, so this stuff was going on long before somebody invented the term. And it can be very bizarre. The only thing I can tell you is if you see anything that vaguely resembles a carnival sideshow, walk the other way. You don't need to get involved in that, guys. Nobody is a head spouse. You don't owe anybody anything, and you certainly shouldn't be giving romantic favors to anybody. Please be aware there are creepy people out there. Um, and you have to learn to marry for the right reasons. Sometimes you marry because you just, you depending on, we're talking about different decades here. I appreciate that. Maybe you're all caught up in their story, or you're all caught up in a movie, or you're all caught up in an illustration you saw, or you fell in love with a statue or something, and they're suddenly the one. The reality of the god in a statue, or their stories, or a picture, or now movies or a video game or something, are two entirely different things. Some will keep up the facade for a while, being like, sure, I look exactly like that statue. Exactly. Or I look exactly like that movie star, that video game character, or that, the person you read about in novel. Or yes, I exactly did my stories. You should take them as gospel. Sometimes I will keep up that facade, but then it's like the cracks start showing and the truth starts shining through, and maybe you shouldn't have taken those stories as gospel, and maybe they didn't do all these things, and they just like you saying they did, or they don't look like that at all. Since I've had many multiple spouses, and again, I'm not saying that to brag, every so often they do something I call taking their human skin off. Human, appearance, as far as I know, is a nicety for us. There's stories like from the Greek pantheon. Let's admit it, I've never just put into every pantheon. I've been alive a long time. Is that if a human would behold a god in their true form, It's also that in the Old Testament, it's that in a lot of things. If we saw a god in their true form, we just go, "Psh," that would be that would be it. We would just fry to a crisp. Um, every so often they take their human skin off and they forget, and I have not seen a god in their full glory, or I would not be here to talk to you, but you will get just a hint that they're not even remotely human, and just this panic and terror will come over you. You're like, I'm not supposed to be seeing this. I'm not supposed to be seeing this. I'm not supposed to be seeing this. Some god somewhere mercifully put a failsafe into humans of like, you know what? We forget stuff. I better put a failsafe in here. Okay, if you ever see this, panic and run away. Or something something tells us to run the heck away. And I actually had it happen one specific spouse, and he didn't have his human suit on, and I was having a lot of troubles in my life. I mean, we all do from time to time. And I'm laying there in bed, and I had this bookshelf, and I had like an altar for him on. And I got the idea, just the barest inkling. So it's not like I saw full on, like I've seen the face of God. I wouldn't be here. Or I'd be a raving lunatic, one of the two, if I managed to survive. I got, well, gosh. It was terrifying. It was simultaneously, it was this vast presence, but was also this presence of pure light, of like almost like a doorway or something. I can't get over to you how terrifying that was, and I thought I was going to die. In fact, I knew I was going to die. And the energy was happy, and the energy was, I'm looking at you. Are you not happy? And somehow I got out. I don't to this day know. I think, one of the other gods of that pantheon must have helped me. I got out. You don't have your human skin on. Oh, yeah. Oh, you can see? I'm sorry. Here, let me put it better. You're terrifying. I'll always know that's what you really look like underneath, and that's really not what they look like, but that's what my brain, was showing me. I'm like, you're terrifying. Please, stay away over there. But I love you, honey. Let me come see you. They will sometimes do that. They will forget and not have their human skin on. That is terrifying if that ever happens to you. Some people are like, no, it was so loving. That it's not the same thing. I've had that happen too. Being shown a glimpse in a loving, intentional way is one thing. Seeing something you weren't supposed to see by mistake is something that just you run every single time. It's not, oh, I'm the one meant for you. I will be able to see this, and I won't run. Yeah, you will. You will run in terror. Go, yeah, I'm not supposed to see this. The gods are here. Everybody run. Why do you think people panicked in the old days when they saw comets or anything else unusual? Oh my God, the gods are angry. I think the gods used to forget more. I think they're more on point about it now. And you'll have all kinds of relationships if you have multiples, and you'll have ones that, if you have multiple spouses, they're going to feel free to chase all your other spouses away. Now, okay, this is where we get into, and this is important because we've been working on this ourselves. It's really going to depend how you see gods, how this part of the relationship's going to work. If you see all gods as the same god, then no god can really deny you a relationship with another god because they're literally all the same to you. If you see all of a pantheon as one god, then you're technically married to the whole pantheon. That might weird you out a little bit, but you're technically married to the whole pantheon. Obviously, if anything felt inappropriate or wrong, a god's not going to do it with you, but, hush, child. And, but you are technically married to any of them, so God A couldn't tell you, well, you can't be with B and C, and you'd be like, you're literally the same God. If that is your true belief, that's going to be your experience. You can't fake this stuff, by the way. You can't say, oh, I'd like to be married to 5 of these gods. I'm just going to use the I believe you're all one pass card. You have to truly believe it. Um, and that's another thing too. You never have all the answers. Some people think they do, and they will run up to you and they will scream at you that Loki is a space alien because they know. And you point out as gently as you can that they are practicing a faith based on a known hoax that took place in, I believe it was England, on TV. And you're trying to say, dear, it's fine to believe in space aliens, but please don't let this be the basis. And no, they know Loki's a space alien. There are people that will tell you they know Loki's a fairy, and there are people that will tell you they know he's a white, which is, a type of spirit. There are people that will tell you Loki's dead and he's a ghost or he's an ancient ancestor. None of us have all the answers. If you are having any of the above or anything else, like Loki is, I don't know, Chalutlu or however you pronounce it, you you have to realize that that can be your legitimate experience, but we all have different truths. I experience him as a god, but when I've asked him stuff like this, if somebody's like, "Oh no, he's totally a space alien," like kind of that History Channel After Dark, but now History Channel 24 hours. You know how History Channel's gone. Um, Results will vary. If you get interested in something and you want to try it out, but don't get married to that. Don't get married to the idea, well, everybody seems to be saying the gods are aliens now. I have to go get married to that. Or everybody's saying the gods are archetypes now. I have to go get married to that. Or everybody's saying the gods aren't the gods of anything now. I have to go get married to that. You don't have to get married to anything. You can try it out. You can experience it. If you really believe that Loki's attached to the underworld or he's attached to fairies or whatever, experiment with that. If he's going to tell you a hard no, don't push. Don't push. But there's no one universal truth. It would be nice if there were, because we would have like all of the gods listed down. We would have exactly what they do and exactly what they roll over. And this is what we don't have that. That's dogma. We don't have that. And just, realize that the marriage has to ultimately be about love. If you marry for something, and I can speak from experience, if you marry for something because you are told that, you can run into all sorts of people. If you were told if you enter into a marriage with so and so, they will give you such and such, that very rarely, if ever, plays out. Just speaking from experience. And at the end of the day, a very good God will say, yes, I took full advantage. No, I didn't intend to give you that, but I was interested in you, wanted a relationship. And I'm not mentioning names because sometimes some gods do that with us to teach us a lesson. If you marry for something, you're going to get exactly what you deserve. And sometimes that's going to be a kick in the seat of the pants. And luckily, this god was nice enough to be like, I didn't intend to give you any of those things. I just wanted you to learn a lesson. And I do like you, so here's your parting gift. I'm not going to just keep you here forever. And I was like, oh, thank you. Don't do that. Don't marry out of desperation. Do not. We all go through hard times. Don't marry out of desperation. I'm not saying that if you have a relationship with a god, or you are in a hospital dying of something, you can't just say, I swear to all the powers that are holy, if you get me through this, I will marry X, Y, or Z. I'm not saying you can't try a Hail Mary pass like that, but if it's you're after fortune or fame or riches or something, you're usually not going to get it from a marriage any more than you're going to get it from hooking up with every god in a pantheon, or like every I'm not that bad. I got, shut up. And you're not going to get it that way. You're not going to get it from hooking up with the same god 80 different ways and 90 different times a night. You're certainly not going to get it if you run around the interwebs telling everybody you're doing that. Everybody's just going to be like, we really need to get him neutered. The people that are married to the god will be like, we really have to get him neutered. Is it possible? And they'll be going and talking to the god or goddess that are involved with them, like, can you do that? Can you start putting something in his coffee? Because it's embarrassing. It's not about the people running around embarrassing the god, and you shouldn't be embarrassing a god just because you guys did something that involved a chandelier and a trapeze. Nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to go. Don't ever tell people something they don't need to know. Okay? You got it 80 times last night. Good for you. There are video games I can do that with. So, and people start to kind of feel a little embarrassed for you. But if you're too young, and this has nothing to do with age, by the way, if you're too emotionally young romantically to realize that just getting that doesn't mean you have a relationship or you're special. Pleasure is pleasure sometimes. Sometimes it can be about a connection, or you're feeling a connection and your partner isn't, and sometimes a god has to teach that lesson to people, and everybody else is sitting around thinking, oh gosh, when that career doesn't come through or that money doesn't come through, they're just going to have to either double down and triple down on their illusion that it's coming through, or they're going to have to tell the rest of us, why didn't it work? I did everything you want. We don't need to know. Yeah, the gods don't do that. So, if you're being treated that way by God if you're consistently hooking up with them and nothing is coming through, or you entered a marriage and they had promised you something and nothing is coming through. You really do have to ask that God if it's a life lesson for you. If it's a life lesson for you, then you have to learn. And I don't know if I said this attempt, but marriage to a god is different from marriage to a human. It's never going to be just about you. There are countless before you, there are countless after you, there are countless during the time of you. It's not the god cheating on you, even if some people act like house wreckers and come up and say, well, I got it 12 times last night, what you gonna do? They can't wreck your relationship. That was with a distinct part of the god. I truly, to the depths of my DNA, believe that it is a distinct part of the god for everyone. Some people can't take that message. They don't want to hear that they're not the chosen one, the one and only true romance. They can't share. You have to grow past that if you're going to be married to a deity. Sometimes it's based on youth. Sometimes it's based on they never had that love of, a mortal, or they felt they never had that love of a god, and they want to be the one and only. You can't do that. I'm sorry, darling, but you're married to a god. They're married to an awful lot of people. And I go, yeah, and you can't do that. You have to get past that jealousy. You have to get past that idea of ownership. This is not a monogamous Christian marriage. If that's what you want, I'm sorry, but the only way to get it is a monogamous Christian marriage. They're not. The part married to you will be faithful, but the God in their entirety is certainly not, dropping every other spouse or consort or whatever on the earth. Final thing I will wrap up with is gods cannot control people. There are always going to be people that, if you're public, are going to see it as a competition, are going to have to overshare to try to hurt you, are going to say, I don't believe in that, but I've slept with 80 gods, and I hope you know I slept with yours, and my naughty bits are magical, and they invalidate your marriage. No, they don't. Just some people have a competition. They want to have it all, but they don't want to make a commitment. And Godspousing is a huge, it is a huge commitment. Any kind of marriage or any kind of, living together is a huge commitment. And some people don't want to do that. They want to have absolute, absolute freedom. And some people just aren't, they're never going to be committed. They're never going to, I used to have a big problem myself with words like commitment and stuff like that. But you have to get to the point where you're like, okay, you know what? I can't play the field forever. I'm going to be old and alone someday. I have to start thinking about commitment. I have to start thinking about, you can find some God somewhere if that's what you want, is a relationship with a God. It's a lifelong companionship, to be sure. You can find a God that's just fine with you running around sowing your wild oats, at least for a while, but you eventually have to realize that if that's what you become known for, at least among humans, no one's going to, take that very seriously. There are very few people that are going to go, oh, that's nice, you spread your love all around. There are people who will be like, just making our gods look cheap. Please stop. There's nothing wrong with being a romantic companion to all the gods you want, but you don't necessarily have to tell people. And eventually you are, no matter how liberal and free you want to be. I've never seen a person that lived that kind of lifestyle, whether it was with other humans or gods, that was perfectly content. You're going to at least want companions for a time. You're at least gonna, if you're terrified of the word marriage or commitment, you're at least going to want to use a word like companion or something. You're at least going to want some committed companionship for a time. It's no fun if you're just together as long as it's fun, and then you're dumping that one and you're on to the next and you're on to the next and you're on to the next. You do eventually have to move out of the period of being a commitment phobe, and you have to make that leap. And if you make it with the wrong one and they're halfway decent god, they're gonna be like, boy, you really are miserable. Okay, I'm cutting you loose. So there is god divorce in a way, but not like you're gonna get divorce papers in the mail. We therefore are not together anymore. They just will stop coming into your life, and maybe they do visit like once every couple years or once a decade, depending on how long you're living. But they will cut you loose. You will have those ones that, if you're not emotionally mature, sometimes not. Sometimes the god's like, I'm not playing this game with you. You're not ready yet. But you will have some that, the relationship will end, and that's okay. It's not, you didn't fail. You just weren't ready to be married. You thought you were because, our society does a really sucky job getting you ready for marriage. It's like cosmopolitan, and it's more focused on the wedding and making your frickin', family happy if it were earthly spouse, and letting it be the mom's day. And oh god, I'm glad I've never had an earthly spouse. I'm like, that would kill me. It's all about the wedding for some people. How much attention can they get? How much, can they spend on the wedding? How much, can they surprise the guests with? Like, they all skydived and they went to Sri Lanka and they all have $5 million, whatever for the gifts just for fun. Shut up. It's not about that. It's not about, who can get the most presents, have the most lavish wedding or something else. We really do not prepare ourselves as a society for being married. There are some, you'll know them when you find them. I can't think of any by name, but there are some things on YouTube, like from, I'm really bad at telling ages, of something like from the 40s or 50s, maybe even the 60s, of young people, advice for young people. Now, it's from a Christian bent, but sometimes you're not in the right kind of love. Sometimes you just want to play house. Sometimes you're just not ready for a commitment. And do be aware, closing out, do be aware commitments change. Commitments can change. A God can change how they feel about you. Sometimes that means it naturally ends. Sometimes that means it naturally deepens. Sometimes that means you get a whole new set of rules. Maybe you were pretty free before, and they don't want you being so free now. Maybe, like for me, I did not want to be public, and I was told this is not an option. I've never done this to you before, and I'll never do this since. And after this, and I was like, yeah, right. But it was like, this is not an option. You have to do this because there has to be, information out there to combat the idea that it's either all, sunshine and lollipops, or it's all one long drudgery of suffering. It's not either. Try to see where people are coming from. Some people just like to suffer, and that's what their marriage is like, because that's what they want. And some people want to live in rainbow lollipop land, and that's what their marriage is like. It can be, you're going to be times you're going to think you're suffering, but there are going to be times it's going to be rainbows and sugar drops and everything else. But it really depends on a lot of stuff too. I'm gonna close it out, but it does depend on a lot of stuff. It depends on how you see the gods. It depends on how you see marriage. It depends on how serious of you are. It depends on whether you're, ready to commit or not. It's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later. Bye bye.